Hello, this is EMS Platypus, and I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about learning the tricks of multiple choice tests. Why do you need to know it? Well, at the end of the semester, you'll be taking a National Registry, or NREMT, exam. Now, the platform that they use is multiple choice, which is easy to grade, and they can give you feedback on how successful you were on the test pretty quickly. But it also has this tool called computer adaptive testing. Now, what is computer adaptive testing, or CAT? It allows for questions to change based on your previous answers. So if you look at question A, if you get question A correct, that means question B will be more difficult. The reverse is also true. If you get it wrong, question B will be an easier question. And the reason why they're doing that is to identify how well you know the subject matter you're being tested on. They can track that to get a baseline as to your understanding of specific topics. National Registry tests you in 5 categories, all of which you must successfully exceed a minimum score in. They are airway, cardiology, trauma, medical, and EMS operations. Now, the computer can shuffle between these topics and track and record how well you're doing in each and every topic. For example, the graph on the right shows that of the 4 questions that the student has taken on trauma, he is doing well in. Unfortunately, his medical scores are not where they need to be. So how do we prepare for National Registry? Nothing can replace content. I always have students that will ask, really? Is this going to be on the test? Well, any questions that we're talking about in class can potentially be on your National Registry test, because NREMT is a test data bank. They have thousands of questions, all of which are at multiple levels of difficulty that they can ask you. Now, National Registry gets their questions from the National EMS Educational Standard, and I have that link at the bottom of the slide. Now, it is up to you. It is ultimately your responsibility to make sure that you understand an appropriate level of depth and breadth of each and every subject. When you're taking your National Registry test, take your time. You have 2 hours to answer 70 to 120 questions. And according to NREMT, less than 1% of the candidates are unable to finish the exam. Your risk of misreading a question is far greater than your risk of running out of time. This is a direct quote from NREMT. So what they're telling you to do is read the question, understand what it is asking. Now, National Registry will give you a question, and you'll have 4 options or selections to choose from. It's always 4. That means you'll always have a 25% chance of blindly guessing an answer. Now, let's talk about terminology really quick. The STEM is a question that is being asked. Your options, you will have 1 correct answer and 3 distractors. Now, they might be totally obviously wrong, or they might be plausible options. What I want you to do is I want you to read the STEM and make sure you understand the question. Then read and eliminate options that you know are incorrect. Even removing 1 option can increase your chance from 25% to 33% chance of getting it right. Eliminating 2, you're at a 50-50. Now, when you're looking at the STEM, read it carefully and answer it in your head before you even read your options. And I will, for example, the question says, where do children get formal education? Well, I'm going to think on it first and say, well, I would guess that children get formal education in school. And that's going to be my choice, or that's my idea right now. Now I'm going to look at my options. Well, you can get schooled in the playground, but that's not really formal education, so I will say no on that. School was my initial thought. I'm going to say maybe, but I'm going to continue looking at my options. College, hey, college does provide formal education. I'll say maybe on that. Grandparents' house? No. So my choices are B and C. Both give formal education. Let's reread the question. Where do children get formal education? Children go to school. Adults go to college. Some questions will be super long, and here's an example. Instead of reading through that 3 or 4 times, here's a trick. Start at the question mark. The question mark is all the way at the bottom, and it says, what color is a hodag? I don't know what color a hodag is, so I'm going to start reading, paying attention for anything that tells me what color it is. Hodags live in Wisconsin. All right, that doesn't tell me anything about the color. Hodags resemble the build of a bull and have horns, but they also have white spikes down their spine. Well, that just tells me the color of their spikes. It doesn't tell me what color they are. They camouflage well in the lush green environment. I do not have to read anything else. Why? Because I know that they camouflage well in the lush green environment, therefore hodags are green. Green is my choice. When you're reading through the options, you will have 1 correct answer and 3 distractors. If you have 2 answers that you think are correct, choose the best answer. You look at your 2 possible maybes and reread the stem. And pay attention to the facts. Don't put your opinion into it. What would the book say? All right? As for the distractors are there to confuse and confound. So we're going to read the stem first. And with this, I have an example, 6 plus 2. 6 plus 2 is going to equal 8. Now I'm going to look at my options and say no or maybe. Duckbill platypus, obvious no. I just went from a 25% chance of getting it right to 33. 72 divided by 9. That's even more complicated than the stem. I'll come back to it and I'll just say maybe. 9. Well, 6 plus 2 equals 8, not 9, so C is out. 4 squared. Even more complicated math. Well, the thing is, my choices are down to 50%. I have selected the answer as being either B or D. Now I'm going to do some math. Let's start with D. 4 squared. When you square something, you multiply it by itself. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 is not 8. But 72 divided by 9 is 8. Correct answer here is B. Now use these techniques before, during, and after each and every test or exam you have to identify your weaknesses and try to improve upon them. One thing I didn't mention, and I'm going to take a brief second to discuss it, some test questions will have sequential skills listed. Now, when you're following a skill like how to tie a shoe, you know step 1, find your shoe, put your foot in the shoe, tie a knot, create bunny ears, and tie them appropriately before you walk outside. There's a set sequence of steps. If I told you you're tying your shoes and you've tied your knot, now you know that you're going to make the bunny ears. That is an example of a sequential question. The most important thing is to understand the subject matter. Read your textbook. Ask questions in class. Practice those test-taking skills. That's what your workbook is for. Study often, and if you have more questions related about study practices, I have another video that you can link onto. Good luck. I hope this helps.